All right, we're still waiting on Tom Hoyt, but we're gonna go ahead and start into this meeting. It'll take a few minutes for us to get through the intros and things anyway. I do want to welcome Deb Boggins. She's here tonight from the town of Carroll. Deb will be the next town supervisor in Carroll, the way things have gone at. My condolences.
Our condolences, yes.
Yeah. So the last meeting that we had, in May, we got off track a little bit. I wasn't real happy with the way the meeting went, the results that we didn't get out of it. So I'd like to kind of stay on track with where we're going here. I know town supervisors had a meeting, actually two meetings, one after our meeting last month, and then they met separately. Had another meeting, I think for my board, that email was sent out, I believe today. Just a synopsis of what happened. That's basically what we got, was an email just saying, here's what happened at that meeting, so we'll go over a little bit of that. And see where this thing goes. Anybody have any questions from the last time or didn't get what was asked for?
Just on a town level, I think I'll call it chaos of what happened at the last meeting was needed. Because on the town level side, I feel like we all realize that we failed doing our job in presenting an action plan to the county. So that's what caused us to have two meetings back to back, to come up with something to present to you.
I can appreciate that. And it happens.
Yep.
That's all that's. Yeah, we'll try and keep things going forward. Everybody did so far, everybody's been great in this. We've had good discussions, so I don't want to lose that.
Agreed.
All right.
Good.
All right.
All right, then the distribution under number one, the minutes from the meeting, if you can peruse those, we try and go through those pretty specifically from the audio that we have here tonight. Another article for you as well, number two, from Ulster County, an action that the Ulster County Board recently did. Of course, they're a little bit different from us in the sense that they have multiple agencies, both governmental, not-for-profit, and for-profit, I believe, down there. So it's kind of a scattergun approach.
Rensselaer County and Schenectady County have also just done the same thing.
Okay, all right. Bigger counties, bigger metro areas, et cetera. There is a assembly bill, that's 8086A. A means amended. That's still moving, even though the legislature, state legislature apparently are done tomorrow or maybe Friday morning. This started out absolutely requiring EMS services in every county. Now it's been slightly adjusted to say that the county should work with towns and villages that have an EMS plan. So I guess to say if they're watered down, that's a little bit of euphemistic terminology. Greene County itself, if this month's cycle is declaring EMS as an essential service, so it passed the first committee meeting on the 4th, and it will be declared at the full board meeting on the 18th. The attendance sheet for those of you who are signing in for us, thank you very much. And then today's agenda. Tonight also ends or concludes the 6 scheduled meetings that we had. So I've just gone ahead and picked the next 3 using the same Wednesday of the month to continue to move forward. And please note August 13th, I'm probably going to need a venue. So maybe we'll go back to the school here in Carroll or not, but so stay tuned on that as well. And then, of course, the last note there, the NB, which is Latin, sorry, Catholic school. At some point, we'll also then need to do the community forums, whatever. If there's going to be an action plan coming out of this, I think we'll still need to go forward to give the community an update and a kind of a 101, if you will, as whatever action plan has been established. In section 3, we were also watching 2 other bills. The 2177 which would allow counties or any jurisdiction for that matter that ran an EMS system, any expense expense increase on the tax levy was going to be absolved. In other words, you didn't have to keep that increase within the tax cap. Well, that died last week. It came out of the assembly, but the Senate would not push it forward, and I'm being told by NISAC and the Association of Towns and the Conference of Mayors that it will not survive tomorrow before they make the break for the summer. There is assumption that the legislature, for the first time in years, will come back in the fall. You may have read that yourself, because of proposed federal cuts. Of course, when you flush the toilet, it all goes down. So, whatever the feds do will then go to the states, and then from the states, it'll come to us. So whether or not what happens, any of these bills that perhaps had some momentum but didn't get through by Friday morning, perhaps will come back in the fall session. We continue to push for the taxing jurisdiction and the relief. So that's really kind of a summation of housekeeping, if you will. I'd ask you to then place those handouts in the appropriate sections of your binder, which I know my binder gets heavier and heavier. But that means we all have the same information as well. So I guess at that point, then I'm gonna tip it over to, I've been advised that Patrick, you were gonna have a presentation from, as Pat mentioned, the 2 meetings that the town supervisors had since our last meeting, and I'm gonna, according to my handout, I just said we probably have a Q&A session afterwards, so I guess I yield the floor to the town of Catskill supervisors. Patrick?
All right, thank you, Sean. So the town supervisors met directly after our last meeting, and we had another meeting last Thursday upstairs, and we all came up with a plan. We recognize that this plan is not 100% perfect. It doesn't include every detail. We don't know exactly how many employees. We don't know how much it's gonna cost. There's a lot of other things that need to be worked out, but this is, I believe it was 12 out of the 13 towns were there, and we agreed on this to propose to the county. So I'll just read what we have. I'll go line by line. If anybody has any questions, Sean, if you want to do that, or you want me to read the whole thing?
No, I would say, yeah, I would say go by piece and we can
All right.
kick it.
So first up is a timeline of system development. In 2026 planning and infrastructure phase, Greene County hires Greene EMS coordinator, so that'd be the person to oversee the process. Establishes centralized county purchasing and supply coordination to reduce cost and improve consistency. Implements a new recruitment system to attract, retain high-quality EMS personnel. Assist current municipal and private EMS agencies with integration into a new computer-aided dispatch CAD system to ensure improved interagency communications and response times. Greene County EMS to become a county agency, transition from a private organization to a county-operated EMS system begins. The county begins offsetting the costs the towns previously incurred to support EMS operations, alleviating municipal budgets and promoting regional equity. That's 2026. Want me to go to 2027 or you want
No, I would say let's, first off, did everybody understand the bullets? And do you have a question on the bullets?
And Greene EMS is, in this case, is the terminology used for the new
system?
system,
Yes.
not Greene EMS, the
Yeah,
paramedic
and
system.
We
So,
kept on getting confused on that ourselves.
yeah, when I first
We
read
have
it,
to figure out a new name for whatever we're developing aside from Greene EMS because it's very.
Now you just confused me. Which is easily done, I think. Would you explain that again?
So Greene EMS, it's referred to in here, Greene County hires an EMS coordinator.
That part I understood.
Yep. So Greene EMS is the agency that's currently ran by Mark Evans, which would be absorbed in 2026 as a county agency to start this whole process. We figured that that would be the easiest thing to start off with.
And its operations, I mean,
Everything,
besides the ownership of it,
yep, everything,
operational would stay the same.
yep, everything smoothly transitions
Okay,
over to
that's
the
what I
county
meant.
organization.
That's what I meant.
correct?
Correct.
Just to hire the EMS coordinator portion of it, or,
Yeah,
the
because the
EMS
county would,
director,
yep, the county would have to hire whatever that person's title would be, the overseer. of
and then
this
the
whole thing.
response would maintain with the fly cars.
Yeah, the fly cars would stay the same, they would just now be county employees, county-owned equipment. That would be kind of paid for.
And the coordinator's role is really to establish the baseline of the other things that Patrick is talking about, not to be the new boss of the Greene EMS paramedics per se. They have a leadership structure, and that's fine. For 2026, it's really to get some of those other building blocks in place.
Okay, so the building blocks, meaning operational protocols, standardization of equipment.
Yep.
Purchasing.
Recruitment,
Recruitment,
education,
invoicing, contractual,
Yeah.
okay?
all the small things that can be done within that first calendar year.
Or, Mark, does your medics have a union?
No.
No.
Anybody have any questions or comments? It's kind of quiet, which is a little, I don't like that.
Disconcerting, huh?
Does everybody understand what we're proposing?
The last,
Charlie, you look a little confused. Are you okay?
You okay?
Okay.
so,
I don't think you heard.
the last, one of the last points, the dollar amount to operate now Greene EMS paramedic system fly cars is like 95% county and then 5% each town contributes. So you made a reference that final 5% or whatever percentages would be absorbed by the county, giving the township whatever that relief is
Yes.
per agency.
Yep.
And Mark, is that 370,000? Is that what that balance is?
That's ballpark, yeah.
That, Kevin?
Yeah.
Correct, that was the intention. Okay.
So how would you figure that 300,000 would be divided up amongst the taxpayers? Would it just be equal across the board?
Nope,
No, it's whatever that municipality.
goes by AV.
Whatever the assessed valuation
Stay
is for
the
the
same
town.
that it is now.
Whatever, no, it would not stay the same because the current town value is based upon a town assessment. If you transfer it to the county, then it's gonna get divided across the entire AV. So it could swing the impact, well, you're gonna have a town reduction of some dollar amount, but I can't guarantee that same dollar amount would then not be equal to how the county would have to raise the equal amount of money.
Yeah, the current system is based on call volume from the previous year.
Right.
Yes, right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was based upon AV.
No.
No, based on-
I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay. But that would definitely be a change.
Any other questions on 26?
So 2026, you still want to keep 5 fly cars, which is the Greene EMS system, rotating with the current ambulance structure you have.
Yes, under this new county organization,
Okay.
with a new county EMS coordinator, for lack of better terms. I don't know what else you would call it, Sean.
Good point.
Just a quick question of like what that would change other than that cost.
It starts the process.
It
But,
goes,
but could you start that process without them acquiring the medic service? Yeah, I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
You're essentially creating the top tier of the new structure immediately. So like essentially you're creating an ambulance, which we're gonna get to in 2027. When EMTs and other staff are absorbed, you've already got a paramedic system, you've already established payroll, you've already established operational logistics of running a system. And you build from the top down. And it allows the county to phase into EMS operations.
yeah, I don't know that I see it as a lateral transfer of how things are set up with Green EMS though on a larger system. On a countywide EMS system. And I say that because you include people off the bat, it wouldn't include anybody who's not part of Green EMS. And there may be people who are not part of the Green EMS right now that should be involved in developing these protocols and systems that we want to develop.
That's what the role of the coordinator was for, from our perspective. The role of the coordinator is to not necessarily be running Green EMS as it exists under new ownership, but to establish those protocols, the order of operations, and to get some of that low-hanging fruit done and out of the way before you talk about a full system makeover.
Yeah, I've mentioned before that part of the process could be to throwing the entire switch is to have the back office. I think I've used the term numerous times to hire the back office in preparation for the full scale transfer. Whether or not that's one person, three persons. I think though that the terminology that we're going to use, coordinator, director, executive director, is it?
We don't know.
Okay, but is it a transitionary period? Is it a transitionary title for 26 that then evolves into something for 27? Or is this title really gonna be the director of what probably will be 120 person department?
That would be the county decision.
Yeah, it's certainly plausible.
Okay. I understand. I'm not, I don't know if I'm with you yet, but I understand your outline. Okay. Floor?
The one thing I don't want to do is hurt anything that we already have in place that does work.
Absolutely.
And that, to me, right now is Green EMS. So changing the upper echelon and how it's managed is one thing. The operation runs pretty well and works for our taxpayers. So that we certainly don't want to.
We agree that Greene EMS works very well, and all we're suggesting is that who's paying the bills for that organization and the benefits given to those employees changes, because they now have the benefit of being a county employee. And their checks are coming directly from the county. First year, that's the only thing that changes.
Floor?
I'd like to point out with this plan, it does, coming from a paramedic and administrator, it does make a little more sense that you're able to hand out 26 for not only, even if you move the medics or not move the medics, that's a whole different discussion, but allows you for retaining people, putting people through EMT class, so then we're not rushing it. It gives you a whole year to find people, come through class, get them trained through every agency in the county.
The
Then we
reason
don't
why,
have the shortage that everybody complained about before, the lack of the providers.
I think one of the things that the supervisors recognize is that, starting a full-blown brand new system in 2026 just seemed to a lot of people not feasible.
I think we're all okay with that.
For some of the reasons that you just pointed out, right? Is that we need a recruitment strategy. We need a retention strategy. We need to standardize a lot of things, right? CAD system, purchasing, et cetera. That's gonna take time. A year, we think is sufficient to do that. But also get the platform in place.
And if it takes more than a year, it takes more than a year. We don't want to rush. I don't think anybody in this room wants to rush into this. That's why we've had 7 meetings. Tonight's our 8th meeting. We want to take our time. We want to make sure we get this done right with everybody's input, with caring for the residents and most importantly, the employees.
Yeah, I mean, we started in October, so.
Okay, you have more, right?
Yep, but somebody.
Okay, yeah, Rick,
Right. I just want to say that I was there for the first meeting, which was spontaneous, if you recall. we
Yeah.
Zipped out. It broke down, I think, quite early on. And, I did not, so I left because I wasn't going to go for another, bit of nonsense. I was not at the last meeting because I was away. I sent, one of our councilmen, who's a liaison for the ambulance. And he did not have any input, to my knowledge, in this. So when we say we, I don't know who the we is. I think we're building a camel here, by a committee. We got too many committees. And I don't think we should have parallel towns doing this and all of us who are gathered, in this forum. I think this is the forum we should do. That's,
His contribution or lack thereof was because he just didn't participate or he
No,
wasn't allowed to?
no, it's still, he just has not been to any of these meetings. So, it was,
Oh.
you know, he only knew what I would rehash.
Gosh,
But what I would just add, Rick, is that your representative at the meeting that the supervisors had was engaging and he
Okay, good.
participated in that conversation and agreed unanimously with the rest of the supervisors that were there.
I would say that what he would, the town of Woodstock wants to go in this direction. The town board does. And he might not have known all the nuts and bolts that you already know. I think he had a general concept. This is where we were.
Rick, I just wanna make sure. Did you say your town board's direction is consolidated countywide system?
Yes.
Okay. Michael?
I was sitting next to Tommy, and I agree with what Dawn is saying. I felt Tom was engaged, listening. Tom and I had some comments.
I'm sorry,
the-
Tom, board designee, not Tom Hoyt, right?
Right,
Okay.
Or Hobart.
And he had a lot of good historical knowledge that he shared with everybody.
I mean, he was engaged from my point of view. I mean, so,
Yeah, just so the people in this room know, I ran that meeting a week ago Thursday. I intentionally went around the room 2 different times and asked people any questions, any questions across the board. So any supervisor that was there had ample time to put their input in. Some of us took the air out of the room, some of us just listened, but everyone contributed to that meeting to come to this outline that Patrick is putting forward to the legislature and the body. So it was a combined effort with agreement by the 12 of the 14 towns that were there.
Anything else?
Yeah, I just gonna say, any other points before Patrick moves to 27?
2027, system rollout and service expansion. County EMS launches as described below. All EMS operations are now staffed and managed by county employees. Phase implementation strategy. Areas where the most urgent staffing or response need become pilot zones for county-run EMS deployment. Lessons learned in pilot areas inform all regional rollout and operational refinements. EMS system deployment 2027 structure. Ambulance deployment, all paramedic, so all ambulances, we're proposing that all ambulances are paramedic level. 1 EMT driver, 1 paramedic. 10 in total. We're suggesting 5 in the valley, 3 on the mountaintop, and 2 floaters. Mobile units are used to surge coverage areas, special events, or system GPS gaps. Supervision, the valley supervisor, 1 fly car, mountaintop supervisor, 1 fly car, assistant supervisors, non-response roles, which again is just, it can turn into a response role, but we have, training and continuing education as part of the responsibilities, community outreach and public education, bulk supply management, program oversight, director of EMS operations, manages entire system, ensures state regulatory compliance, clinical quality, and strategic planning. Program benefits, system-wide equality, county-run models, ensures uniform staffing, training, and service levels across municipalities. Fiscal relief for towns, county assumes EMS operating costs, allows towns to reallocate budgets. Improved clinical operations, 100% paramedic level deployment ensures ALS care is available for all calls. Flexible and scalable floaters and pilot areas phasing allow for operation agility. Public trust and engagement, community outreach programs foster transparency and preparedness. That's a lot for 27. And we understand that that might be too much for 27. If 26 rolls into 27, then obviously you're pushing it all back. Again, this is an extremely high level business plan that what we came up with. Any questions?
Yes,
I'm sure there's
let's
a
come
lot
back.
for 27.
I understood your opener about transfer of employees. What was pilot zones?
Pilot zones are the areas that need help today. So I know Greenville has been here almost every meeting saying that they need help now. So would Greenville be a pilot zone?
Greenville's help that they're requesting that was on the financial side.
I don't know if that.
Well, Greenville's here. No,
The biggest part, of Greenville is the cost, I mean, if I tally up what it costs us for the rescue squad, the small amount that we paid for the Greene EMS, the paramedic black car, and my two fire departments, it's like $1.3 million. My whole town tax rate for the general fund, the highway, the library, and chargebacks is a 1.8. So it's a big, huge, and I think we have the highest tax rate per thousand for the ambulance district in Greenville. I believe it's the highest tax rate in the county. That's the relief we really were looking to receive. I don't have too many complaints about the services that Greenville Rescue Squad provides. They do an outstanding job with what they have to work with. But the cost is just, I don't think it's just sustainable down the road there. As a matter of fact, I know it's not.
Pressville's in that same boat.
What's that?
And Pressville's in the same boat.
Yeah.
I would have to work the numbers to see if I can argue with the other tax rate.
no,
We have a taxable rate, our town's valuation is 98 million. And our budget for ambulance last year was 225,000.
Just so you
Ours was-
know,
ours
Pratteville is slightly higher.
There we go. Ours top dog.
Ours was close to 6.
And it will get more painful next year,
Yeah.
even
Yeah, it will
if,
be. But ours was, my ambulance district, which we combined the two in the budget, the Greene EMS cost, which is a bargain. And the rescue squad, I believe, was right on the number top of it, 617,618. And I believe our tax rate was like $2.07, $2.09 per thousand of taxable value. And that's a lot, that's a lot of money.
And then my other point was, just so everybody's aware, Greene EMS is a not-for-profit. It's not controlled by the county. It's not something that we can just go and say, hey, listen, we're just gonna take away your employees. It just, it's a bigger conversation that has to be had.
You can have.
I'm just saying, that's not something that can happen right away.
Right. No, we understand that.
But that's something we can work toward.
so let me come back to your deployment, your 53211. The 11s are supervisors, are they PMs as well as, so that it's a fly car by
It's a
default?
fly car paramedic.
Okay, so in theory, we have. Is that one per shift, so you have an 11 car system. Right, per shift, 5321 basically is your.
Yes.
Right?
No, 2.
5321,
5 ambulances in the mountain, 3 on the mountaintop, 2 floaters,
floaters
and then 2 supervisors.
Correct.
on each shift?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I thought it was like a day shift, night shift, that's it, okay, gotcha.
Get that email to us, like, I'm so much better off when I can actually read something and absorb it than
I
having
think-
something right at me on.
I think you have it, Patty.
I do, where do we have it?
Sean sent it today.
In our email.
Really, she, from today.
Yeah,
Should have put that as the.
probably printed it.
I tried. Oh, that's what I said, was an scratch.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a Word document.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, Patty, I'll get it stuff. So, all right, then the town budget reallocation. Let's go back over that. So this is the $4.6 million that's cumulatively raised on town tax budgets for the EMS system. What happened to that money? In 27?
In 27, we take it off our town tax.
Okay, so you take it off, it comes to the county.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure you got that understanding.
Should probably use a different word than reallocate.
Right.
It seemed like you guys will take that money and.
I was thinking the same thing,
Like
like,
your budgets.
I told you 2 or 3 meetings ago, I promise you that the town of Catskill will not do that.
I agree. I'm just saying some of you, the wording.
The wording, yeah, yeah.
Nomenclature should be important.
I'll be more than happy to take the 2.5 out.
yeah, you're basically gonna reduce your town tax by the amount that you're charging now for EMS.
The county side, the county tax.
Absolutely.
Any discussion on asset reallocation?
We didn't really talk too much about that.
Are we buying assets or are you tipping assets over to the county along with $4.6 million?
Well, I think there's a few of us that are in a situation where we've got bonds,
Bonds and leases, we had said previously.
right? The
We
county
would
would
stop
take
with
over,
those, yes.
right?
But depreciated value of assets, you know, a rig that's 2 years old. That was bought 2 years ago for whatever, 100, whatever.
No, if it's been paid for by taxpayers, then it's done. If it's bonded and the taxpayer is still paying for it, then the county taxpayers can pick up the additional payment and the town would be alleviated of that payment.
The second part of that, Michael, I understood it, was my understanding there was still discussion about towns wanting compensation for previous budget allocations that they had expended.
Did we ever find out the legality of that, if it's already bought on tax dollars? And then having taxpayers pay it again?
Well, each community would declare surplus, but typically when you do that, there's a value to it. But there was a discussion about some of you wanted compensation because your town just bought a new rig or whatever it was. And so I just want the clarity on it. Yeah.
We did have the conversation because there's two not-for-profits that the equipment isn't owned by the municipality, being Durham and Greenville.
And Greene EMS.
Yeah, I'm just, Greene EMS was bought by the county taxpayers.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's taxpayer funded. Yeah, exclusively taxpayer funded, so it's. Yeah, not like Mark, not to put words in your mouth, but I think previously you said before. Every pencil and vehicle comes to the county. And only cash we have.
Well, we did talk about it, and there was talk about if a town were to get paid back, you know, again, it'd be 10 cents on the dollar, it would be like depreciation would be hard to figure out. On maybe you bought a stretcher for 60 grand, today it's running worth $5,000. You know, it's a wear and tear, and there's not really a big market for secondhand equipment.
Well, I guess that would be something for the EMS, the new EMS director or coordinator to figure out is how many of these existing ambulances do you need? Do we need all of them?
We were really high level here.
A lot of them sit right now.
A lot of the finite detail, we feel that somebody to be hired can figure that out.
I think that a lot of this, should not be legislature. You know, these are operational things that should fall under that organization, somewhere along the line. It's just gotta come through the legislature to get the financing.
The equipment is still gonna benefit all of us.
Absolutely.
With the system service. Selling it, we don't owe anything. It seems absurd.
The
We're
equipment,
charging the taxpayers twice.
the training, all of it is looking to be standardized at the end of this, and everybody winds up with the same service and the same level of service being provided for them, so.
I mean, it's in my head, so I'm gonna say it, I don't know if it's gonna make sense, but it's the same thing with New York State retirement. We have all these employees that the towns have been putting into their retirement system for years and years. If and when the system takes place and we turn everybody over to the county, we're not gonna ask you for reimbursement for what we contributed to their retirement. So it's kind of the same, in my mind, it's the same way with the equipment, town taxpayers are ready for it.
Is there a 2028 action?
We're all fully operational by then.
You were exhausted that I. I guess I understand the concern about how long do you design a transitionary period? I guess my concern, and I'm not in the business, so my naivete is probably gonna scream here, but there's no immediacy to address the existing problem that we have today, which is the transport side. I think we got here we're here today because we don't have enough rigs at any given point of the day to transfer, and we get backed up, and then we have, you know, the other agency, I'm just, did we miss a point, or we just acknowledge that we got a rolling system, and we got to build from within, and if it takes 24 months, it takes 24 months.
Absolutely, that problem is there, and for that specific problem, there is no immediate fix.
I mean, there is no perfect system. I mean, you can sit here with five, I mean, some days, if you have 15 rigs, you have 16 calls. Just gonna happen, in my opinion, that happens.
And I go back to what Sean Matalik said, I think at the last meeting, and just like, the system that we have is okay. It gets stressed sometimes, but it's okay. But there has been times that many of our supervisors have seen, is like, it feels like more than stress. It feels like, we can't keep up. And clearly, this phased approach is meant to alleviate that over time. But on day one, if we implement a system similar to this, we're still operating the same system. And we're building upon it, and we're building upon it, and we're building upon it until we've done a conversion.
So just building on that quick, so by 2027, right, we're gonna have 2 flight cars, supervisor flight cars, right? That's it. The supervisors, what are their qualifications gonna be? Are they gonna be paramedics?
Yeah, be paramedic.
Okay, so now, right, we have 5, why would we go to 2?
Because every ambulance would be ALS.
But every call does not be a paramedic, so I don't know if we necessarily need all the ambulances to be ALS.
I think that there's been a number of discussion on that and a number of studies that ALS enabled ambulances are much more desirable than having only BLS with a fly car system. And I think that, there's been reading, and I think it's in the packets on that. And it goes back to what we, up on the mountaintop, we discussed early on. It's like, why does this make sense? It also helps from a staffing perspective. Because essentially, Greene EMS has paramedics, enough paramedics to staff the shifts. And it reduces the need for as many EMTs as you do, because now you need a paramedic and 2 EMTs for every fly car. So you've essentially downsized that immediate need. And you've created a system in which everybody's got the same capability.
But I kind of agree, because not every call needs that
Right,
level of
and again, I
service.
think that's a decision that should be made by whoever that new coordinator is.
Yeah, but if you're talking about who you're gonna hire, and how many ambulances you've got, I mean, every call to a nursing home doesn't need a paramedic to show it. The problem is you don't know what ambulance, and what's happening now is paramedics are being dispatched to every call.
And then you need.
So that is a problem.
So, yeah, so there's like really no change, essentially.
So here I'm concerned, I got a fundamental question. She said, if you go to a call, you don't need a paramedic. That paramedic's on board, now you go to Albany Med, with paramedics not needed, you got 3 hours before that paramedic gets back into Greene County.
And the paramedic doctor, that's right.
And on a call that the paramedic didn't need to be on to start with. But I understand what
Every
you're
other-
saying.
but every other backup, you would have.
Everybody people talking.
Every other ambulance will
I can't hear you, sorry. Everybody people talking, I can't hear one person.
In their plan, Harry, every ambulance will have a paramedic.
Should.
What?
Every ambulance will have a paramedic.
Understood, understood. But, wait a minute, one person call. But, when that paramedic's in that ambulance, and it goes to a call, as she just stated, that the paramedic is not needed.
No, no,
And that paramedic goes to that hospital.
The backfill is the fact that you've got nine,
Nine.
potentially 10 other ambulances with, you have 10 other paramedics.
In a perfect world, but if you listen to the scanner and you hear paramedic, Green car, such out of service, such and such, come down, stand by. A lot of paramedics aren't back in service, right as it is now.
That's with the flight car system.
I'm talking about the flight car system, because you have to, take a look at that because, wait a minute, I'm talking about the ambulance. But if you look at the fly car system right now, you hear it on, right? They go to Albany Med or whatever, so they're not back in service. They jumped in an ambulance, they're gone. Now they're gonna be in the ambulance.
They're always in the ambulance.
Alright.
I know it's
You
so
guys
hard,
read
it's
it.
so hard, there really is no perfect
They're not
way.
getting what I'm saying.
But there are days when we are darn close to having no ambulances left, right? That's still gonna happen, because we're not changing the number that we have. If there's a paramedic on every
Yeah.
ambulance, and every ambulance is gone, that still leaves no one left when they're all at the hospital.
Thank you.
And that's why when you buildings that are running the operation, they have a list of other employees. When they see the system start to get depleted, they pick the phone up, just like a highway department does when a snowstorm. They call somebody home and they say, and that's how the system has to get designed.
Which would be perfect, but I don't
No,
see that.
and nothing's gonna be perfect. But our mindset was if you put a paramedic in every rig has the best trained people. So you don't have to worry about, oh, there's a call that we're out of paramedics because it's one of those crazy days. We have the best people for every call.
I
We
mean,
also know we have to build the backstops in, and that's what our coordinator would do.
That flies to the base of this white paper on EMS staffing. Where it says, moving from all ALS, means a paramedic in every ambulance, to tiered deployment models is the way that an ideal EMS system should be set up. Which is what we have now. We just don't have enough.
So, Tommy, if you can guarantee that there's gonna be plenty of paramedics,
I worry about
that you won't run into that problem, that's a different story.
having enough paramedics to staff the ambulance, every single ambulance, 24/7. That was something, I don't know. I'm assuming some of our medics would leave, some people don't wanna be in an ambulance or retire, and I know that we also have one in Catskill, but there's plenty of time where
You hit the head there.
there's, I'm playing devil's advocate, so please don't think like I want to.
There's two sides to every coin.
You opened up.
I mean, I
Yeah.
just, it's, we need to really think about that, if we already have a shortage of EMTs, know that. And now if we're putting paramedics in the ambulance, we would have enough to staff 24/7, and that's.
And a lot of, one of the reasons we attract the medics we do, is that we have the lifeguard.
I mean, since COVID, pay, EMS pay, I know especially for paramedics, it's become so competitive. And now it's a lot more people, we're not becoming a paramedic, people only did it for careers when they were in the fire department, so now they are, you got Gilderland and Colony, and they're making real money, and it's hard for them to, like, when you're 10 years in, to get agency, and you're not going to a flight car, you're going in an ambulance, what really changes.
I think the town supervisor did an excellent job of getting together and committing this to paper. I think you could cut a couple steps out. If the county's gonna make a commitment to a consolidated system, the very first thing you gotta do is go hire a director of EMS. Nothing's gonna happen before that. I said that last week. You gotta hire a director of EMS. What happens after that? They can focus on training. They can do the purchasing. They can establish a standard of care. They can oversee, running an EMT boot camp, to get more people into the system. And they can then write a plan that can be implemented on what system's gonna look like in 26 and what the permanent system's gonna look like in 27. But we can sit here and talk about what we want to happen, but you gotta have somebody that's gonna do it.
That's, we agree 100% that starting with that is the first step. And the rest of it is just our thoughts, right? And totally up for negotiation, and we're not taking it personal if anybody disagrees with any aspect of it. It's up for discussion. But I think the important thing to recognize is that we have unanimous agreement from the towns that this is a direction in which we want to go.
Jim DeBerna,
the only thing that I wanted to.
I can't hear you.
The only thing I wanted to point out in all of this is that towns have now committed to head the exact direction that the first working group meeting, I don't think I see Steve Meyer here. But what he drew on the whiteboard upstairs in our first working group meeting, what you guys laid out as the town supervisors is the exact model the EMS working group built upstairs however many months ago, minus a couple of extra ambulances. So to see that the town supervisors are heading the same direction that the EMS workers were initially is real positive. But again, it's that what's gonna happen in 2026 and how do we get to that rollout? We realized that golden goose plan, I'll call it upstairs, wasn't achievable because of the staffing and employment issues that we have today. So how do we solve that and get through 2026 so that we can continue to build towards that golden goose model that was drawn up on the board months ago now? We're all seeing the same finish line. It's getting that initial kickoff that seems to be the hurdle now.
And Daryl?
One thing you have to remember is if you're only gonna have a certain amount of ambulances that are EMT and paramedic staff, and then the other one's gonna be BLS. Where are they gonna be? Are you gonna have 3 of the paramedics up on the mountain? And two down, you know, how does it work?
Well, again,
reason that
Daryl, that's gonna be for the coordinator to figure out.
No, I know, but I understand Harry's point about the BLS going on a call and going on public. All right, so you got a paramedic on board. You're coming back from Albany, you cross over into the line, and there's a call comes out right there, paramedics there. I'm saying, I don't know if we can staff it all, but the reason that's so good is because you don't have to worry about moving people around and stuff. You have the exact people you need on every ambulance. That's why that's a good system.
And also, we just thought about it, you know, just going over it over and over again, that we have a shortage of EMTs. If we wanna build upon the system, right? As close to day one as we can and build and make it bigger. This actually reduces the amount of EMTs needed on any given shift. That's it.
Brian?
So I know I've been a critic of some things that have happened here. I do appreciate and think that the direction you guys are heading, like I said, past last month after meeting, is the direction I can get on board with something like that, a more step approach towards the bigger goal of the unified county system. I think a little bit of the minutia of, stuff, what you guys are saying, all, different stuff, fly cars versus all ALS ambulances. Some of the stuff could get lost where I think people in EMS would expect a lot of time EMS to understand it. But I would expect to understand your job intricately. So I think if that's the direction the body is going to start heading, is a stepped approach in a 2 to 3 year phase in to a bigger, all-in county entity. I think some participation from providers in the field is vital to that process.
We agree. Okay. So I say, it's not gonna be the legislature coming up with the SOPs. That makes zero sense.
From the get-go, my biggest concern was staffing and being understaffed on day one. And having it be a light switch situation where now we're at county ambulance. Now everyone's dissolved their town ambulances. And you're pretty much jumping off the cliff and hoping your parachute opens. If it doesn't, there's no recourse. So I'm happy to hear that this is a more stepped approach with, pilot areas and that sort of thing, to kind of test the water and see what's working, what isn't. So.
I said this meeting was last week, on Thursday, and we just got the information that came from it, so the board hasn't really had an opportunity to look at what the whole plan is. That's what's being explained tonight, so, I don't expect there's gonna be an answer tonight as to who's gonna be the next EMS director or anything like that, but, certainly food for thought here, if we're gonna take over Greene EMS, we would just buy out all the not-for-profits and go from there. That's a joke. Sure.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify a little bit for Laney's question there, and this kind of hits on Jimmy DePerna's. It is correct. Everybody seems to be coming to the same realization of what a good plan looks like. You guys did awesome. I can't believe all the towns are like in agreement on something, and thank you for your work. From the initial meetings, the whole paramedic in an ambulance concept was, and Dr. Stanger was even supportive of that, is a standard of care across the board.
Yeah.
And it's not just to push EMTs out or anything like that. And the staffing level of the EMTs, me personally, I like everything you came up with the getting the staff to organize it. But I just still don't see the point of, by making the Greene EMS into the county positions, I don't really think that fixes anything until you get a plan to phase things in,
Well,
other than just cost shift
Sean,
for the
we
most
put
part.
that as a starting point. The initial plan is everybody becomes.
But I understand that, so you
that
have to
would be
train up.
One element that we start to roll over at, this little step is to this little step and start phasing, understanding that as we get developing it through a coordinator, the steps may come faster. They may go slower. We don't.
And I understand
We
that.
don't know that.
But that doesn't necessarily do anything until you get your management, whether it's a team or whatever, together to find out. Because you're not really gaining anything by running the same system. And if it's an EMT shortage, the initial plans that got thrown out there would require double the EMTs at that point than you need on the final product. So then you gotta think ahead of, okay, we train up 30 EMTs, and now you implement, you put the paramedics in the ambulance, and now you don't have jobs for half of those people. You know, so they're budgeting this out for double the amount of EMTs you need. The end goal looks good. But it's the implementation and how to get there.
I think,
But I'm just saying, I don't think it doesn't matter whether the Greene EMS medics are county employees or the way they do it now. They're there, it's the same response, the same everything.
to us, it just made sense as sort of getting that department going, right? Like in 2026, we feel like that's the easiest way to just, hey, we're not changing operationally anything. We're just getting that department going. Get some leadership in there. We're changing some roles and responsibilities. We're establishing those SOPs. We're establishing all of those things that Patrick mentioned. And then you start to absorb, and then you go pilot, and then you start to absorb, then you build. And listen, if that's not the way that it makes the most sense to do it, fine. But it was just our concept.
But thank you guys for.
So if this group decides that that's the way we want to head on this, then the county would need to go for a countywide CON early on, very early on. Even take on Greene EMS as employees. And I'm not saying that we will or won't, but if we were to do that, we would need to have that CON, countywide CON in order to do it.
Correct, that in about 2 weeks.
Crickets. Anybody else? Go ahead.
My concern is for my patients in Greenville.
Speak up. I can't hear you.
My concern is for my patients in Greenville. I'm the assistant chief of Greenville Rescue. What happens to the residents in Greenville? The town of Greenville doesn't own ambulances, they don't own a station, they don't own equipment. Our next door neighbor, Durham, same thing. Would the county be willing to buy, purchase, whatever, a station and equipment for Greenville / Durham? Or do we go back to 2010 and wait for an ambulance 20 minutes away to take care of my patients in Greenville?
Well, there's two questions there. I mean, asset. What happens to assets that are currently owned by the two agencies that are not for profit, not including Greene EMS, who's already said he's just donating everything over to the new agency? I guess the respective towns purchase the assets, but they're currently owned by the 501c3, correct?
Yeah.
Well, a 501c3 can dissolve, correct? And assets become donated,
I mean, even
if you didn't pay for them to begin with.
even if the county was gonna pay the not-for-profit for those assets, then they would be a not-for-profit with no assets and a bunch of money. What would they spend it on?
My concern is what is gonna happen to my patient? Is someone going to put an ambulance in Greenville or Durham? Or are we gonna go back to
That's the idea.
2010?
Well, I can't see a system that wouldn't have an ambulance somewhere in that location, but again, that's not gonna be the legislature to say that, that's gonna be your EMS director or department that's gonna decide where resources will be allocated.
And I don't think anybody would.
I don't think.
No,
there's any-
Let service out.
No,
You got 12 rigs a day, right?
What are you between
They're
the,
moving, the 12 rigs to,
And right now.
what's the call volume Durham and Greenville put together? 900,000
900.
Just over 1,000.
for both?
combined?
Combined.
Okay, so, you know, it's, I would say there's gonna be an ambulance in that area somewhere, at least one.
It has to, it has to. There
It's
has to.
gonna be at least one. Where that's gonna be, that's not gonna be this board to say.
Wouldn't that be an extra added cost to the taxpayers and of Greenville and Durham? Because now you have to build by whatever, another station and that for profit equipment.
Why would you build another station when the taxpayers paid for that one already, and the towns were already putting all our stuff?
We don't have, Greenville doesn't.
Greenville doesn't have a station. Greenville
Well,
doesn't
I
have
mean,
a station and they don't have equipment.
The paramedics don't have a station either, but they're there when you need them.
So, and actually, the Greene EMS beats the response time of every ambulance I've seen, so. They'll do that.
Yeah, I think logistics, are fairly easy to figure out between, Jimmy DePerna and, you know, people that are such as you are in the area now. I think the logistics are fairly easy to figure out. It's just not gonna be the legislature that says an ambulance is gonna go here, an ambulance is gonna go there. That's just not our,
The Richmond Associates study has anchor points for each ambulance location to
Yep.
maintain that 15-minute response time, so. Just try to stick to the post that.
No, but going back to that, I see, you're still, I forgot your name. From, Ravina and New Baltimore, their numbers are not included in that study, correct?
the call volume is,
Is the call volume in that study?
Yeah.
But okay.
Inaccuracies.
yeah.
That's
Right,
right,
so
that's what.
that's just another detail that whoever this coordinator is gonna have to figure out.
And we also recognize and we discuss, you know, Ravina's situation and maybe there's still a contract with Ravina. While this transition is taking place or even in the future. You know, nobody's saying otherwise. Again, that's for the coordinator, the logistics person, but that is currently part of the existing system. And exclusive of the calculations that we've done with the internal to Greene County system. And you guys are providing a real and valuable service to the town of New Baltimore and. You know, that's for someone to figure out.
New Baltimore supervisor was at your meeting?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, and, you know, again, going to this type of a system is to make sure that everybody has the same service available.
Or better.
Right? Or better, right, but everybody inclusively all has the same service available.
Right, because we have the same situation in Lexington.
So the one thing we can't do is we're not gonna hire Ravina Rescue as employees.
Correct.
For Greene County, right? I mean, that's just.
Right.
Probably not gonna happen. How does that affect things? I don't know. I know in the transitionary period, absolutely. They're gonna be there just like they are now.
But there is potential for MOUs with Ravina still. If rates are
Sure.
off of that side of the county, the potential still there that we could use them.
Yeah.
To what was said before, I'm from Durham, so I have to look at it. I need to be able to go back and tell my residents and tell my board, hey, okay, we might have to spend a little bit more money.
We will.
But we want our EMS people to be getting paid what they deserve, have retirements and not be working 80, 100 hours a week and then coming to the house. Gonna cost a little more. but I can't go back and tell them they're not gonna get as good service.
Right.
So when I look at Greenville, I think of Durham kind of in the same lines there. There could be faster response time because there are some ambulances that refuse to go to Greenville, they refuse to go to Carroll. So it might be at the Carroll Greenville line, there's no more Carroll ambulance and Greenville ambulance. Whatever rig is stationed in Carroll may be faster to get there.
Could be.
Or if it's the New Baltimore Greenville line, it could be a Coxsackie ambulance that's closer to get there, or a Durham ambulance, and vice versa. So I think the times can still be there once we start working as a whole instead of individually. And I do like this program in the fact of if Durham gets so busy that we need an extra ambulance, it's virtually impossible for us to staff it and be able to get a rig to do it.
You're not
The
alone.
entire county can do that, and the entire county benefits from it, every township benefits from it. This is a starting point to talk about. It was the supervisors getting together. Our job is budgets for the town, so that's what we look at. Legislators, you're looking at the budget. We want EMS to come in to give us exactly what to do. We're working on one aspect of it with the money right now, and I think that this setup is a good avenue for us to go and a starting point. If we go day one and guess what, 10 ambulances is not enough. Instead of one town saying, okay, we're gonna buy a new rig, now it's every town contributing for that extra ambulance for everybody in the county. That is something that's feasible, that can work more, because we can't sustain paying individually by town right now. So we have to consolidate and work together. And all three groups that are in here, EMS, legislators, and the towns need to be working together. It's not gonna go anywhere. So we each have to give our little inputs, but I think this is a good starting point for us to move forward.
Anything else from the presentation then? Paul?
Question was asked why, Greene EMS should be county employees. I think to attract, retain, and possibly recruit new employees, that's a big advantage for somebody to come in and have state retirement and the county benefits for the medical insurance. I mean, we're trying to get more people interested. What better way of getting more people interested in that for a career or job in Greene County, knowing that they'll have the same benefits that every other county employee has. And there's a really good possibility that down the road when this starts, people that come over from Greene EMS might be able to buy some of that time into the state retirement at a reasonable rate to get additional years of credit for.
We do have a 403B plan.
Yeah.
With about 12, 13, 14 participants, and it's almost $500,000 of.
But
We don't contribute,
Yeah.
EMS does not contribute,
Yeah.
but we set it up, and there's a lot of money in there.
But from a standpoint of recruit as many qualified people as you possibly can, I think that's a great recruitment tool, to have that ability to tell them you're getting the same benefits as the county.
Go ahead.
Just one question, Mark, and I ask this question, and please don't take this as accusatory. Are your employees interested in making that transition? County system?
I believe most of them are. We have, we have quite a slew of part-time. But I think most of the full-timers would, that's been an issue with the staff. We can only, financially, we can offer the benefits at a certain level. Can't offer retirement, so we did the 403B. So we've offered as much as we can. So the logical next step.
Yeah, it's just, just like what you guys were all talking about is the different qualities and the perks and the not so perks for a fly car or an ambulance systems, that number could change and stuff like that. It's just flexibilities.
And that's a great point, and I would make that point, that one of the reasons that we've been able to continually advance and they need 24 paramedics she knows that we've been able to add ventilators and IV warmers and, you know, maybe some point later this year, we'll have blood on the trucks. The reason we're able to do that is because we have the flexibility. We have the ability to just say, hey, we're gonna increase the training and we're gonna implement this and we have money set aside and make it happen. If it's, if they're all union, you know, I'm familiar with working with the union. I haven't in a long time, but, you know, you have to obviously plan your year ahead versus, you know, sometimes we have something come up and it's like, what's up on it?
It's all part of the CBA.
Can I mention one other thing? I think, it sounds to me like the group is moving forward, which is good. If you get somebody on board and you start implementing the training and the purchasing and standard of care, et cetera, I truly think that you could get 2 county float ambulances on the road in 2026. I don't think that would be hard.
If we find the resources for it.
Right. But that, yes, absolutely. You got to get more EMTs, you know, run a boot camp, run a couple boot camps. You know, you can buy a couple of ambulances. Big push with these where you put them. Still no county facilities per se, but you work that out with the county. So I'm just a little worried that we're kind of pushing more units into the system out of a year, but we need it right today. So it's.
That was earlier.
Yeah, so I think it could be done faster. That's why.
I still think that that is a phased approach. And I think that would have great support from the towns as well, if that is feasible.
It is.
Yeah.
There's nothing magic about January 1st or March 1st or, you know. At some point in the future, if this is gonna go, there will be a switch thrown and at midnight, it occurs.
When it goes.
Yeah, but January 1st is, it could be anything. Pick a month.
Well, listen, it was last October when we picked January 1st of 26. Yeah, you would have thought that 15 to 16 months would have been enough, and but here we are. You know, so we can pick a date whenever, if we need to, we just move it out. And I'm okay with 27. My concern, only because it's in the back of my head, is Greenville's contract runs out in, I believe, it's August of 26. And we need to make sure that there's a transition for them as well.
I believe it's, December 31st of 26.
Is it the end of the year?
Yes.
Okay.
And we understand, it may come fast for some parts of it.
Yeah, we may need to tier this.
Put the pilot thing in there because there might be our new director may look at parts of the overall system and say, hey, I can start merging areas at one time.
The pilot almost may also be part of that, moving ambulance.
Well, we figured we were asked to get a start point, so we figured we'd get a start.
I think we all appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, and I'm gonna move on because the next couple items. Oh, I'm sorry.
Patrick, are you guys done meeting with the supervisors?
No,
the town supervisors?
we'll have more meetings.
Can I suggest, I don't want it to be me, so please, I say this.
Yeah, this is being live streamed,
You're there.
just so you know.
Huh?
This is being live streamed and recorded.
That's your one thing. Any EMS, I don't know if you had any EMS providers or leaders there, just so, you know, plans for be more realistic when it comes to timelines and stuff, just so that.
Absolutely. We actually, we discussed having EMS leaders in our community there. And we chose not to for the first meeting.
That's fine, because then it gets you're too involved.
Yep,
Yeah.
wanted a high level.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're like,
and- Yeah, Sean did meet with them, with the EMS leaders. Prior,
I had some, you guys were there.
yeah,
We needed to hear from employees as part of the bigger picture. Absolutely.
and I also have another proposal that was sent out today, I just haven't gotten to read it yet. Along the same lines, just to compare the two.
All right, well then, with this concept of transition, I'm gonna move on to item number 6 here. First bullet, Neil, I'm gonna ask you for the benefit of people to describe the PPS CAD installation and how it would work, and then, the second bullet is more of the protocol. But if you could just, for edification purposes, could you, talk about that?
Please.
And you need to speak up.
There's two products that could go into the ambulance. There's what I will call a mobility product, which is app-based, Android or iOS. And the other product is Windows-based, or Windows Surface Pro laptop, or a Rhino tab, similar to what the sheriff's office uses. Both have their own costs, pros and cons. Ourselves as a department, we've kind of agreed that we would recommend the application-based or the mobility-based solution, which is cloud-based. There's no real answer. I can't clearly answer the question. And there's many options that a customer has in this regard.
Well, the functionality is that dispatch knows where the rigs are geographically.
Yeah, so when they're logged into the CAD system, the GPS of that computer device, Android, Apple, whatever it may be, is broadcasted through the network to the servers here at 25 Volunteer Drive. And as long as they're logged into it, we would know where that unit is at any given time. That's what the GPS provides for. And that's integrated into the CAD environment, regardless of platform.
So then, again, I'll just, by understanding the territory or the location as call volume is dispatched, you have the ability to move cars so that they're not in the extreme edges of county. You're moving them constantly.
We're doing that now.
Well, you're doing it now for those vehicles that are GPS.
No.
No,
Everybody, okay.
we're doing it now. The GPS is just an added feature. We currently, Ashland, Wyndham, and Greene EMS have a mobile CAD product in their car, whether it be computer-based or app-based. We can see where they are as long as they're logged in. Where they are does not dictate that if the town of Ashland ambulance is returning from Hudson Hospital and there's a call in Catskill, we're not toning the town of Ashland ambulance just because they're coming through Catskill. We're toning the town of Catskill ambulance, right? But the GPS in the future would offer us for something of what we would call proximity dispatch in a countywide environment. That help?
Yes, I think in the law enforcement world, it's the terminology is, closest car doctrine, right?
Yes. Same idea.
I think I guess the point I was trying to make here was, in transition, the dispatch system is making the determination as to movement.
Yep.
And that vehicles aren't self-dispatching.
No, they're not.
Okay.
That's correct. Dispatch is moving the ambulances based on call volume at that particular minute. That's what we're doing. That has nothing to do with
Except
GPS
Greenville.
or the CAD.
And the Greene EMS is not on the CAD?
Yes.
They are.
They are now.
Yes. Yeah, he said Greenville,
I know.
Wyndham, I'm sorry, Greene EMS, Wyndham, and Ashland are equipped. Basically, I believe the townships or the Greene EMS are purchasing the equipment, the county has purchased the software,
That's correct.
right? So it's kind of a shared expense or a shared system where.
What is the price for installing to these vehicles?
We had that at the last meeting, I think we're at $5,600 per rig. And we had 20 rigs we thought did not have the equipment.
That's if you go to the Windows page. If you do an iPad, you can get an iPad for cell service for $350.
Yeah, systematically, I don't know if there's an advantage one or the other, but. I think our practice now is about 5,600 hours a rig, what we do.
To do it right from the beginning, yes.
That's the cost for each car.
For each, yeah, each, yeah. And then our software, it does not get purchased by seat. If you know what the seat terminology means, we can put as many seats or many vehicles out, it doesn't change our software.
We had to be very careful in selection of our unit. Because the medics do the reports, so we have the EPCR system on it. To support both that and the care. There was only a few units out there that would do both. An iPad would not do it, for sure.
And you're not taking it out and putting on the ambulance.
For the fall, no offense, for tablet or laptops, we can't do a fall because of the CAD running. And we have to chart from way back and on the way up, because it's gonna die. So maybe if there's.
The ambulances would have just, you know,
Right.
it
Ours
would
are
be
wired
dedicated
right
to
into
it,
the
yeah.
ambulance itself.
There's also a safety aspect too, it's not just the proximity. I have experienced a request for assistance from an ambulance with a combative subject on the throughway. And we're given a general location and trying to find them roadside. The GPS offers the ability for dispatch, all somebody has to do is yell for help on the radio. And dispatch can start sending people into an approximate area to try and find that person. Fortunately, they were able to give somewhat of a mile marker and what direction they were going in. But if something is actually happening that's bad or lack of communication or something going on, the GPS does afford everybody that has access to the CAD the ability to get to people to help them. So there's more to it than just, oh, they're just looking at us to see where we are.
I'll just say, this is without the benefit of having the CAD, but more just the benefit of one of our staff listening to the scanner and knowing where our assets are. You know, there's been a couple of instances where, you know, there's a last man standing on the mountain and everything is happening in the valley. And we're like, we need to call and try and get second crews, either Tom or myself or somebody. And we do have the ability to do that. You know, in most cases, but you know, the GPS, the CAD system would allow everybody that has access to the system to see where the problems are in times of high demand. And where the weaknesses are in times of high demand.
Yeah.
All right, we move on. Item 7, I think we can probably skip. It's again from the transitionary period, and again, the terminology that I use of hiring the back office first. And then I guess 427, if this is the decision, I'll come back to the comment I made about, you know, throwing the switch so that everybody would go live. When I used this terminology last time was the onboarding process. I think, as I said before, if we're gonna have 100 to 110, 20 employees, very systematically over the course of a number of weeks, each of these employees would get a civil service status, we would check all their credentials, etc. We would then enter all that data into our payroll system. John Doe was in, Jane Doe was in, so that once I have all the personnel defined, then I think the next process would be definition of shifts, cycles, platoons, etc. Again, all of that being pre-programmed. We're not in business yet, but we're pre-programmed because we know who's gonna be on board, or we know how many bodies we need to have on board. And then once that's all set, then we pick a date. And then really, it could be just a simple throw the switch. And at midnight, or, you know, 12:59:59, you're a town employee. At the stroke of midnight, you're a county employee, because it's all set. all civil services, all the union issues would have been resolved by that time. It would take weeks to accomplish that. But once you have it all accomplished, it is simply throw the switch.
That would really need to be done in the last 6 months of 26. If you were gonna go.
Yeah, whatever,
26.
whatever the date is, I have to have all that programmed, all that canned in. And ready to go, and then we just pick the date, and the date is irrelevant, any date, you can pick Tuesday the 5th, you can pick Sunday the 18th, doesn't make a difference. But within that, certainly now, as we get closer, as I believe the situation is today, there are 3 unions, but they're all represented by the same company, or the same union organization, so assimilation would be easier than if I had 3 different unions. But we're gonna have to go through that process, and the majority of the employees would end up being unionized. There would, of course, there would be management people, MC, pick a terminology. And all of that would have to be negotiated up front. Again, the transitionary period, a little concerned about waiting until 27, but you certainly would need months to canvas together before you could actually then go live. But then again, in public administration, it's July, folks, 18 months away, it's not that far. It's not that far at all.
That's a lot of work to do.
There is.
And we gotta hire what?
And we gotta hire more people, absolutely.
We have to hire a coordinator
And
or.
we have to train them, we have to send them to class, we have to send them to school.
See, question for you. I mean, the way I'm thinking about this and the length of time that it's gonna take to get this going, I would almost prefer to have an EMS director on staff this year to get this plan rolling. At least get it started, get something started, get the procurement started, get those sort of things started. Is it easier in the transition period if that person already exists? Let's say, for instance, Greene EMS hires them and we amend their contract to add that person in right now, since they're coming into that, I'm assuming here, since they're coming into the fold as employees of the county first. Is it feasible to say right now, hey, Greene EMS hired this person for a position? And
My
then,
only question is, what is the benefit of that?
well, I'm just trying to figure out how do we most quickly get this started, right? So how do we do a procurement system if I don't have a person?
I would say they're already in the business. If I hire them, I don't know the business. But if you're already in business and that business eventually is gonna be absorbed, do we hasten the setup and the organizational structure up front by having the probe up front? I don't mind training an EMT, to become an EMT. I don't want to train somebody to become an executive director or a coordinator or whatever.
Right, it's your business.
When you say Greene EMS, do you mean, for hiring a director, you don't mean private Greene County, you mean like for the ambulance service underneath the county?
Right.
No, I think Pat was
Well, I was
referring
referring to Mark's group
Mark's group.
right
They
now.
hire first. I don't put words in your mouth.
Yeah,
That's
no,
not-
I'm just curious, if they're private, but they will still be paid by you guys, not Greene County paramedics.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, they would be paid by Greene
We would
EMS.
expand the contract.
We would just extend the contract.
Yeah, we're-
When we keep on saying Greene EMS,
I know.
we're going back and I'm like,
But that, just from a transition standpoint, if they're already part of that organization, it may make it easier. I don't know, well or not, but.
I'm sorry, but don't we have an EMS coordinator already in John O'Donnell?
Greene
County.
What's that for?
He's a part-time position. Today,
Be a full-time thing,
I'm sorry,
could be a full-time.
absolutely.
Why can't the county just create a position have a be overseeing these things, making and working with all the agencies. And
We could.
We
That
can,
might be your best bet, when it doesn't create any.
I could do it through emergency services too.
yeah. We can do that, absolutely.
Our only thought was that, you know, this person is going to have to get a lot of systems in place on behalf of the county, right? Like pre-system. Pre-system being rolled or built up. I don't know, it just made sense for that county to have access to the county resources. Hey, need a county email address, right? I'm gonna walk down the hall and go talk to that guy, you know?
Well, eventually the person is gonna be reporting to a 14-member county legislature.
Yeah.
So is it better just day one? And that person might come from Greene EMS, okay, because they're already in the business, or somebody in Albany, or somebody in Timbuktu, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, they're all just thoughts.
Okay. All right, I think 9 becomes irrelevant at this point, so. We're at 94 minutes. Any other final thoughts, questions, concerns, bitches, congratulations?
Bitches.
I don't know, I think this put us a little, I feel a little more comfortable after this meeting than I did after the last one, that we're heading the right way. And I appreciate the town supervisors for taking the hours that you did, in coming up with this plan. It will help. No doubt, that gives us a good idea of what you're looking for.
So, getting back to the agenda and the schedule, so I put up 3 dates. Hey, what is my agenda, for July? I mean, I certainly could bring forward job descriptions or,
I was thinking you were gonna introduce the new county EMS director.
You get time.
yeah, I got a month. I got a month.
Good. All right, you are good.
I can wait it, I can wait.
And it's not lost as to how long this is gonna take.
All right, then I'd ask you to mark the dates. And perhaps what we'll do is we'll confer with the town soups as well as I'll confer with my bosses. And the personnel. And go ahead, Paul.
I just want to commend everybody. I think this was, most effective meeting we've had yet. I think, I applaud everybody for their hard work.
Well, that's because of the town supervisor, not me.
No, I didn't mean to tell you. I think it's just the most progress you made. Just my.
All right, anybody else?